Kentucky Wildcats.
Jack Gibbons with an incredible performance.
It's over and Kentucky upsets Indiana 92-90.
By Davis. Davis has got the ball. This one's over.
College basketball's national championship trophy is coming home to Kentucky.
Two teams with a lot of talent, a lot of abilities.
I just know that they play hard.
I'm a senior. I've been there, done that.
It'll be a war.
When do we play them?
Today. You play them today at 4 o'clock, but of course John Calipari already knows that, just as he did last week when he was having some fun right after the Wildcats win over Belmont. Rob.
Yes, he did. I'm Rob Bromley along with Brian Milam, and welcome to this special edition of WKYT Game Time Wildcat Warm-Up. And for the next hour, we will break down the rivalry, the Cats and the Cards.
But before we do that, let's revisit the recent past, because we are dealing with the last two national champions. In 3 of the last 4 meetings, both UK and U of L have been nationally ranked.
We start in 2011. Josh Harrelson and Brandon Knight lit up the Cardinals for a combined 17 of 25 from the field, 48 points, 17 rebounds, and 5 of 7 from three-point range. UK blasted the Cardinals on the boards and on the scoreboard, 78-63. Exactly 1 year later, Louisville entered Rupp Arena and the world was introduced to Michael Kidd-Gilchrist. MKG single-handedly shut down the guys he guarded, but proceeded to score 24 points, bring down 19 rebounds. To Louisville's credit, Russ Smith had 30 in a game remembered for 52 fouls and its physical play. The two powers met again in the most hyped meeting since 1983 and 1984. For the 3rd time in series history, it was in the postseason. The site was New Orleans and the Final Four. Anthony Davis was superb with a double-double. UK led by 11 until Peyton Siva's three-pointer tied the matchup with 9:12 to play. Kentucky would regroup and hold off the Cards 69-61 en route to the national title. Last season, U of L built a 17-point lead early in the second half and was in total control. However, the Wildcats went wild, cutting the lead to 63-61 with 5 minutes to go. Louisville would slip by 80-77 as the Cardinals snapped a 4-game losing streak to the Wildcats.
So we'll see what winning streak starts today. Tip-off now, less than 4 hours away in Rupp Arena.
And that's where Lee K. Howard has set up shop before it gets too crazy in downtown Lexington. Lee K.
Yeah, we're set up here at Wildcat Central, and already it's getting a little bit crazy. Some people starting to get in here. They've been looking forward to this game for quite some time. A lot of them probably been looking forward to this game since last year's loss at the Yum Center. Coach Calipari, as soon as his Wildcats took care of Belmont a week ago, he started preparing for this game, and he says it is an important game, but mostly because he needs to see his team improve as a team. It is a big game today, but the Wildcats need to win this game to improve as a team. He even took us back 5 years to illustrate his point, back to February of 2008. That's when his #1 Memphis Tigers took on second-ranked Tennessee, coached by Bruce Pearl. And at that time, it was even as big of a game that Priscilla Presley showed up for the game. Memphis had won 47 straight games, but on that night, the Vols pulled off the upset. And then, Calipari says, the two teams went in different directions.
And there must have been 30,000 people outside the arena watching it on the big screen because they couldn't get tickets to get in the arena. It came down, and the game was so high-powered. I can't begin to tell you how fast and how aggressive. And We had a lead. They made a shot. We missed a shot. They made a shot late at the buzzer. We missed a shot. They won. From that point, my team went like that, and their team went like that. And I mean tanked. And why are you laughing? I'm not saying that about anybody. I'm just saying it was the truth. And so my point being, we have to get better.
Now, it was close to the truth. Actually, the Vols did win 31 games that season. They won the SEC. They went on to eventually lose in the third round of the NCAA tournament. The Memphis Tigers, meanwhile, went on to the national championship game where they lost to the Kansas Jayhawks. So it is a big game. Calipari has acknowledged that UK and Louisville, every time they meet, it is a big game. And it is also an interstate rivalry game, much like that Memphis and Tennessee game was back in 2008. But Calipari still maintains, as big as it is to get a win over Louisville, he wants to see if his team improves today. Rob and Brian will get to see if that is the case after the game. Guys, back to you in the studio.
All right, thank you very much, Lee K. Before the season began, true basketball optimists in this bluegrass state thought this game just might be the nation's top two ball clubs. It hasn't quite worked out that way just yet.
Well, both teams have stumbled this season as they work their way up to this big game, including a young Kentucky team that has missed 3 chances at some pretty good victories.
The Cats open the season with wins in Rupp Arena over UNC Asheville and Northern Kentucky. That set the stage for a trip to Chicago and a showdown with Michigan State. The Cats #1 in the country, Michigan State #2. Kentucky trailed by 12 at the half. Julius Randle led a second-half comeback, finishing with 27. But the Spartans held on to win 78-74. Kentucky returned home and won 4 straight. It took a rally in the last 7.5 minutes to beat Cleveland State. From there, it was off to New York, where the Cats put together a solid game against Providence. Willie Cauley-Stein, 15 points, 9 blocks in a 79-65 victory. 5 days later, the Cats were down in Texas facing Baylor. With about 13 minutes to go, Kentucky let a 9-point lead get away and lost for the second time, 67-62. It was back to Rupp to get a much-needed win over Boise State. James Young, 21 points, including 4 threes. The first true road game came at North Carolina 2 weeks ago. Disappointing day for Julius Randle. Kentucky fell for the third time, 82-77. Last weekend in Rupp, Aaron Harrison continued his strong play as the Cats bounced back against Belmont. Kentucky with a record of 9-3 with 1 game left in the year. The Louisville Cardinals open the season winning their first 4 easy wins on the home court before heading to the Hall of Fame tip-off tournament in Connecticut to take on Fairfield. There, Montrezl Harrell put together a double-double, running the winning streak to 21 games, including last season's run to the NCAA title. The next day, the third-ranked Cards met 24th-ranked North Carolina for the tip-off championship. Russ Smith scored 36 points for Louisville, but Harrell fouled out with 7.5 minutes left. North Carolina forged ahead by 16. Carolina guard Marcus Page tossed in a career-high 32, and North Carolina handed U of L its first loss, 93-84. Rick Pitino's team returned home, defeating Southern Miss, Missouri, Kansas City, and then a 79-63 victory over Western Kentucky. Smith a double-double, 14 and 10. After routing Missouri State for their 10th win in 11 games, it was down to Miami to play Florida International. Louisville never trailed. Rick Pitino wasn't satisfied with his defense, but the Cards made it 6 in a row, 85-56, pushing the record to 11-1 on the season.
Keep it right here on WKYT Game Time.
Coming up, we will hear from the UK players, their thoughts on what to expect this afternoon when the Cats play the Cards. Welcome back to Wildcat Warm-Up. Coming up at 4 o'clock, the Cats and the Cards, and as usual, Kentucky will be facing a Louisville team with a lot more experience on its roster.
But the Wildcats do have some veterans who know what it's like to be a part of one of the hottest rivalries in college basketball.
We're all looking forward to it. I think all the fan base is looking forward to it, so it'll be a war.
So says the man who has witnessed 3 of these games as a player and countless others as a fan growing up here in Central Kentucky. He'll try to share his knowledge with the newbies.
I don't know if they understand it as much just because I've seen it growing up, but at the same time they know it's a huge game, and they're the type of players that show up well in big games.
You know, Coach Pitino does a great job. You know, they're a great defensive team, play fast, they have a lot of weapons.
One of the other veterans knows exactly what to expect, having lost to the Cards last season.
I just know that they play hard. They always play hard, so that's about all I know.
They play extremely hard, way harder than we've played, like way harder. And again, they're Final Four national championship the year before. Those guys are back. They know how hard to play. They're not rattled late. All the things that this team's still learning about.
The message has been simply worry about your own team and give it all you've got.
We just need to get better. You know, the rivalry is the rivalry, but at the end of the day, it really is just the next game, and we got to prepare for it. Like, look, we're not playing Louisville. We're playing to get better against Louisville. Louisville just happens to be the team we're playing. It could be anybody, and we're thinking the same thing.
It's a big game because it's the next one, and they're in our state. It's a big game that way. But the reality of it is, if we win and don't get better and throw one at half court and it banks in, and then all of a sudden we start league and we start losing, we have to get better as a team.
Just be able to handle pressure well. I mean, they're always a pressing team and try to get up in you. I don't know, just bring a lot of energy into that game, and I don't think that'll be hard for us just because of the rivalry. So I think if we do those 2 things, we'll be good.
Even though the freshmen have yet to face the Cardinals, it's not as though the Big Blue Nation hasn't told them exactly what is expected of them.
Anytime you see any fan outside or anything like that, they're number one thing, it's kind of funny, beat Louisville. I don't care what else you do, just beat Louisville. Like, lose 29 games, just beat Louisville. So, I don't know, that's funny. I hear that a lot, and I'm sure they do too.
Cully Stein says prior to this week he had not watched 1 minute of any Louisville game. Randall says he's seen the Cards play but can't really worry about their big men. He says he has to concentrate on improving his own game.
Well, today's matchup will be aired right here on WKYT and via CBS, and naturally, just about every media outlet in the state certainly will be covering it.
With that in mind, we asked some media members to share with us their memories of their favorite UK-U of L matchup.
It's hard to pass up the Final Four game, UK and U of L, for obvious reasons, but personally, selfishly, it's the year Patrick Sparks won the game for Kentucky, because I went out the day before on Louisville TV and said, we haven't had any close games. Watch out. This could be a 1 or 2 point game, and watch out at the end for Patrick Sparks. And lo and behold, Patrick Sparks and his triple step walking, of course, to the Louisville fans, he walked. No, he didn't. Great shot.
You know, every year it's full of energy, and there seems to be 20 times more media that show up, so all of them have a lot of tension going on with them. But that first year that John Wall and Calipari and DeMarcus Cousins' team, you know, within the first, I don't know how many minutes of the game, people are fighting on the floor. You know, I was even shooting upstairs at that point because it was so crowded down on the floor. So, you know, just everybody, there's just a different atmosphere for that game, and it's throwing in a little fight just kind of up the ante, you know, gave us something for the history books.
It'd have to be the Final Four game in 2012. It was the biggest stakes, the whole week of build-up. It was the national story. The game itself was good. It wasn't great. Kentucky was the better team, and everybody knew they were going for the championship. But I think what it represented, to me, the fans got along better that week than they ever have. They were in New Orleans. Everybody was kind of happy to be there. They recognized the size of the moment. And I'll always remember that. I think it was the most special game I've been to.
Well, I don't know about favorites, but you got to go back to the one in Knoxville in '83, and then the follow-up here at Rupp in the, I think, November of '83 is my top 2. Obviously, the one in '83, I mean, it brought everything together. It was for a trip to the Final Four, and it went overtime. I mean, there were so many storylines in that, it was just phenomenal. And then, of course, the first game that came up here in Rupp, old TBS came up and did a 1-hour pregame show for that game. And then, of course, that was the one that made the front of Sports Illustrated, showing Sam Bowie blocking Jeff Hall's shot. Those two were pretty hard to live up to after that, although there have been a number of them that's done that.
Coming up on Game Time, we will hear what you, the fans, have to say about this rivalry.
And we will break down the two teams by position as we get you ready for Kentucky and Louisville right here on WKYT. The UK U of L series resumed in March of 1983 in Knoxville, and it was basically a shotgun wedding.
Well, the NCAA Selections Committee forced them to play by putting them up against one another in the Mideast Regional.
So they finally get together, and it was an instant classic. And there have been a lot of great games since. We asked the question on Facebook, what's your favorite memory of UK and U of L?
A lot of you responded. Dick Gabriel joins us now with some of the results. Dick?
Well, guys, as you might expect, we got a lot of answers about a lot of different games. Crystal Owens says her favorite was the first, matching the two coaching rivals. That was back in 2010. She said, if you were there like I was, nothing can describe the feeling in Rupp that day. You have John Calipari's first meeting as UK's coach against Pitino. You have the all-star team consisting of Patterson, John Wall, Cousins, etc. The tension, she writes, was palpable. The excitement never stopped. Brian Mercer wrote in as well about that, saying he and his wife sat in front of Rick Pitino's friends that day. He says, we wore them all out. Bill Ayer took us back to November of 1983. That was the season opener for both, the first regular season game since 1929. He called it the payback game in Rupp. He said it wasn't as important as the original dream game, but it set the tone for all regular season UK U of L games to come. That, of course, was a blowout victory by the Wildcats, the first game back for Sam Bowie in 2 seasons. We'll hear from him a little later on. Predictably, a lot of people chose the Final Four matchup in 2012 down in New Orleans. Everybody had a story to tell, but none quite like this one. Deborah Dyer-Ezell says it happened on her wedding day on the beach in Naples, Florida. She said, we had to get a satellite and a flat screen brought in so our guests could watch the game during the reception. She said, I was so worried that if we lost somehow, it would jinx my marriage. Chris Waldridge also liked this when he said it was the most emotional game of his life. Matt Archer, Paige Wagers, Adam Williams also among the scores of viewers who liked this one best of all. Guys, we'll have a few more coming up a little bit later on.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gabriel. Now let's take a look at how these two teams match up. And on paper, it looks as though the Cardinals have the edge in the backcourt because of the experience.
Well, the Kentucky backcourt is so talented, but it is made up of 3 freshman guards, Andrew and Aaron Harrison and James Young. Now, Aaron Harrison is a guy who has had several big games this season and led the Cats in scoring at times. He has the ability to get to the basket. He can also spot up and shoot from long range. Kentucky can really open up the court if Aaron and James Young get hot from long range.
Meanwhile, the starting guards for Louisville will be senior Russ Smith and freshman point guard Terry Rozier. Both stand right at 6 foot tall. Smith has had his big games in Rupp Arena against the Wildcats 2 years ago and in the NCAA tournament last season. He could give the UK guards trouble with his quickness and ability to get to the rim. Rick Pitino said while Smith may not be the kind of senior guard who can settle his team, he does make things happen.
Now, the front court is where Kentucky will have the advantage with Julius Randle and 7-footer Willie Cauley-Stein. Stein has become the eraser on defense with his ability to block shots at the rim. Randle, one of the best young players in the country, was with his size and athletic ability. On Friday, Rick Pitino described Randle as a unique player. He's also a rebounding machine, currently has 9 double-doubles on the season.
Well, the Cardinals' front court is made up of forwards Montrezl Harrell, Wayne Blackshear, and center Mangak Maintang. Close enough. Harrell is a sophomore. He needs just 24 points to reach 400 for his career already. And on Friday, John Calipari said Harrell is the key to the Cardinals team, and he's a guy the Cats have got to keep off the backboard. Harrell is averaging 12 points and 8 rebounds per game.
The Cats could have the advantage in depth. 5 guys who've come off the bench at some point this season, including Alex Poitras, Takari Johnson, and Dominique Hawkins. After starting most of last season, Poitras has found a new role now as a 6th man. Poitras is averaging 17 minutes a game while averaging 5 points and 6 boards. Cal says Poitras is a finisher who can also provide energy off the bench.
So the Cardinals do have 3 guys on their bench who have seen significant playing time this season. Chris Jones, Luke Hancock, and Shane Bohannon. Bohannon has averaged fewer minutes in his junior season, but he is still averaging 8 points and 6 rebounds per outing. In last season's meeting at the Yum Center, Bohannon scored 20 points against the Wildcats.
There are the matchups on the court, and then there is a matchup of wits on the sidelines between John Calipari and Rick Pitino. Calipari lost to the Cardinals last season, but is 10-6 all-time against U of L, including his time at Memphis. He's been to 4 Final Fours, took Memphis to the championship game 5 years ago, and of course led the Wildcats to the NCAA title in 2012.
And then there's the guy you UK fans love to hate, Rick Pitino, who's won national titles at both programs, including the NCAA championship last March. He's the first coach to take 3 different schools to the Final Four, and the first to win titles at 2 different schools.
Richard Pitino
is 5-8 versus the Wildcats as the head coach at U of L. And when he worked the sidelines for Kentucky, he was 6-2 against the Redbirds.
Brian, Cats have got to be concerned about U of L's backcourt and Russ Smith containing him.
Well, Russ Smith is going to set the tone for the game in a frenetic style. He is going to be all over the place. That's the way Rick Pitino wants to play. That's the way Cal says he wants his team to play fast. I don't think he wants them to play out of control the way U of L sometimes makes things happen.
And we certainly look for Julius Randle to be doubled again this afternoon, and it's going to be interesting if they can take him out of the game.
I'd like to see Harrell and Randall go at it. That'd be pretty good. Coming up, we head back down to Wildcat Central at Rupp Arena.
And we'll hear from the Wildcat freshmen. What do they have to say about this matchup? Stay with us right here on WKYT Game Time.
Welcome back to WKYT Game Time. CBS Sports coverage of UK versus U of L begins at 4 p.m. right after the Syracuse-Villanova matchup.
Rupp Arena is the place it will happen. Let's head back downtown now and our own Lee K. Howard. Lee K.
Hey guys, as you know, the Wildcats have already suffered 3 losses on the season, disappointing those fans who were hoping for that undefeated year. And really, even before the season began, they had T-shirts printed up that said 40-0. And of course, that all came to an end early on in the year when the Wildcats lost to Michigan State up in Chicago. And at that point, many of Calipari's critics began having a big time poking fun at him for making such a bold statement. But as Calipari said several times, he never made such a statement. And recently, he received some support, you could say, from an unusual source.
To be honest with you, I don't think John said that. I think what John said, from what I understand, is he would someday like to coach an undefeated team. I don't think he said that this year's team would go undefeated. And I think he has a right to say that. Every coach has a right to aspire to anything. But, you know, I don't think John had anything to do with making up shirts. I don't think he got a cut on those shirts. But that's just fans, and fans do things, obviously. And I tell our fans to make up shirts on the past, just so you can save some money in case it doesn't happen.
And I think at this point that most of the fans have got over the fact that the 40-0 season will not happen. I think they do understand that this will be a little bit more of a process. However, I do think a lot of the fans are hoping for a 37-3 season. We'll see how they do today against a tough matchup against the Louisville Cardinals. Guys, we'll send it back to you in the studio.
Thanks, Lee K. John Calipari and his players say this is an important game because it's the next one and another chance to improve.
Got to know your cliches, right? It's also the last chance to beat a nationally ranked team before SEC play begins.
John Calipari has said it time and again. His team needs to get better every time out. It would be helpful if the Wildcats took a big step today.
When the adversity hits, We got to respond. Those are three things. The winning will take care of itself. If we look more like a team, if we play with more energy, and when adversity hits, we respond to it in a positive way. We haven't to this point in the season, but, you know, that's where we're going.
Playing well against Louisville will have to include handling the Cardinals' pressure. Only a few Wildcats know what that's like.
Slow down and be poised, really, you know. It's going to be like this the whole game, you know, just be prepared for it. Just, if you beat the press, you know, make some plays, you know, you'll be able to win the game at the end of the day.
He's fine. He was good again in practice yesterday. He just got to carry it over to a game. He's playing well. Playing well as he's ever played here.
The bench came through in the win over Belmont, including a Kentucky native who likely will see his first action against the Cardinals today. And he thinks his team will be up for the challenge.
I believe this team could get dirty, though, but we don't want to play dirty. But if we have to and they doing that stuff to us, we're not going to back down from it.
The guy on our team that does his role better than anybody else is Dominique. Does what this team needs him to do, he does. And so we're trying now to get everybody else to understand, do you know what you have to do to help our team become better? So we're still working on that with our team.
Well, really, I don't think the pressure will be on us because right now that everybody got us winning probably by like 1 point or something like that. But I feel like there's no pressure because we just coming out to play on our home court, and hopefully 6 men can get us going and stuff like that.
Well, the Cardinals do have the edge in experience, but Calipari has always said, given the choice between experience, superior talent, he will take the talent every time.
Coming up, some former Wildcats share memories of their favorite matchup with the Cards.
And we look back and the game that got it all started here in the modern era, the original Dream Game, next on WKYT Game Time.
Hard to believe, but it was 30 years ago that Kentucky-Louisville was renewed. And remember, there were actually 2 games between the Cats and the Cards that year.
That's right. There was the original Dream Game, 1983 NCAA tournament in Knoxville, and then the first regular season game in modern history the following November. Dick Gabriel takes a look back.
Any Kentucky fan who witnessed the Dream Game can recall the sheer joy of watching their team run off to a lead over the Cardinals and then seeing it all dissolve in an overtime flurry of turnovers.
The press really was the difference in that game.
The Cats were a blocked layup from icing the game played in Knoxville and pulling off the upset.
They were actually a 6-point favorite in that game. So taking them to overtime was an accomplishment without Bowie.
That matchup sparked the fire that has become one of the great rivalries in all of college basketball. Although the athletes have maintained throughout the years, the real passion is in the fans, not the players.
It's so hyped up with the fans and the media and everything. The players, everybody out there is friends, and you know, we're out there just to play. And it's a real friendly game between the players, but those fans get vicious.
There was no disrespect among the players. I used to watch them every time they come on TV, and they were a pretty good basketball team. I just felt that when the 2 schools met, that we were the better team.
The media builds it up to be the rivalry, which is good. I believe in rivalries, and it's nice that 60 miles up the road is a school like Louisville, but I've always respected their program.
But make no mistake, the Wildcats wanted their revenge in 1983, and they got it when the opener rolled around for the following season.
That was our first game, and it was extremely exciting. And what I remember most about it is, here's a team, Kentucky and Louisville, hadn't played in 25 years. Now we were playing twice in 6 months.
We were kind of had a revenge factor, and we had a great game. We really played good.
The game could not have unfolded any more perfectly for Kentucky.
Oh, yeah, everything went on. I mean, the crowd was waiting for it. It was my first game back in 2 years, and there was an extra incentive. Lake Kelly, God bless his soul, I remember he was the last coach to say something to me when we left the locker room, and he said, big guy, you've been waiting for this. Go show them what it's all about.
As big as it got back then. The It was as big as it got, I think, that rivalry and that dream game and Kentucky building up to maybe make a run to the Final Four.
It was a satisfying win for the Wildcats, and to this day, Bowie doesn't miss a chance to needle the arch rival.
I was on the 1980 Olympic team with Rodney McCray, who was a Louisville ball player, and I used to joke with him about, he can transfer, and if his game gets to the point where he's performing well with that JV team, he can come try out for the varsity.
I could watch that retro video all day long. Joe Hall at first resisted the idea of a regular season matchup between the Cats and the Cards, but he came around a long time ago, and now it's one of the top rivalries, if not the best, in all of college basketball.
Well, that's right. Just like the Wildcats, the Cardinals are trying to figure it all out. Louisville has played just one ranked team, and like the Cats, lost to North Carolina.
A road win over Kentucky would improve the U of L profile. Lee K. Howard has more on the Cardinals.
If anybody knows this series, it's Rick Pitino.
I coached 8 years at Kentucky, and I'm going on 13. So I've seen 21 contests. There's only been one big game for me, and that was when they took a national championship away 2 years ago.
And he knows enough not to get too excited about it.
We know that we have to get ready for Central Florida, and Kentucky's got to get ready for their next game. And if you put everything in emotionally and you're drained, then you're in trouble.
He is excited about the fact that the game matches the last two teams to win the NCAA championship.
I think it's just awesome for a state of 3 million people to have back-to-back national champions. I think that's just incredible in a football-crazed country.
What concerns the Louisville coach about the Wildcats is their size along the front line.
I think obviously when you're the #1 rebounding team in the country, I think the reason they do that is obviously they have great size, but they dribble penetrate, they force you to help, and then you wind up rotating with guards on bigs, and that's why they offensive rebound so well.
Kentucky starts twin guards who stand 6'5". U of L's leading backcourt man is 6 feet tall, but Russ Smith says he's never worried about the other guy.
It's like taking a test and constantly looking at somebody else's paper that you don't know. You don't know if that person studied. You don't know if he knows the answers. You don't know if he even went to class. So if I worry about my opponent to the point where I have to kind of change and alter my game, then it's going to put me in some trouble.
Like the Wildcats, Smith and his teammates have yet to score a win over a ranked opponent. Pitino says John Calipari will have the Wildcats ready when it counts.
He's the perfect coach for getting young players better because he's been through it. He's been through it so much. He knows it. He knows the right things to say to them to keep them hungry and humble and moving along. They're going to be a great team come March. They're going to be a great team. What we have to hope for is that they're not a great team come tomorrow.
King of the press conference, Rick Pitino says the Wildcats may be struggling here and there now, but he said John Calipari will have them at their best when it's crunch time, when March rolls around.
Stay with us here on WKYT Game Time. Coming up next, we will revisit a near upset in this series, and we'll hear from the guy who saved the Cats. That's next. Welcome back, everybody. There have been a lot of great games in this series. Not that many buzzer beaters, but there was a memorable matchup in Rupp Arena 26 years ago, decided in the last second.
That basket enabled the Wildcats, who were top ranked at that time, to escape the upset bid by the unranked Cardinals. Dick Gabriel caught up with the guy who provided the heroics that afternoon.
Yes, that big guy behind the counter played basketball for the Wildcats. He's Cedric Jenkins, a Georgia native who played for Kentucky in the late 1980s, and he does remember the Louisville rivalry.
It's always a big game. Louisville is definitely one, no matter what kind of season you're having. That's one game you peg and check off as a must-win.
For years, we've heard that the game means more to the fans than it does to the players. And Cedric holds to that, although he says it was big to the players as well, but in a different way.
We definitely went at it a little harder, but there wasn't a lot of we hate you or fighting. We always had mutual respect, but we knew it was a game that we each had to win.
The coaches, no matter who they are, have tried to pass it off as just another game too.
I don't think they will ever own up to it, but I'm sure They prepared us as if it was another game. Their face in the press was it's just another game, but I have a sneaky suspicion that they knew this was a must-win for them as well, too.
Jenkins played for Eddie Sutton, who really stirred the pot when he referred to U of L as UK's little brother.
I just thought, okay, it's just going to be that much more intense this year. We're going to have to cash the check he's writing right now.
And they did. That preceded the 85-51 pounding UK administered in Freedom Hall in 1986 to the defending national champion. Freshman Rex Chapman showed a national audience what the fuss was all about with 26 points.
He really put his stamp on that game.
But that wasn't Jenkins' favorite game. Fast forward to 1987 for that one. Wildcats built a 13-point halftime lead, but squandered all of it to the Cardinals' pressing defense. And 3 times Louisville took the lead in the last 2.5 minutes, the last time coming with 11 seconds. UK's Ed Davender found himself open.
Put it off to the top. Davender takes it. Won't fall. Tapped up. And good. 1 second to go.
He said, you know what? History writes itself based on the last things. Had you not tipped it in, everybody would have probably been talking about you missed that shot. So he said, you saved me and made me out not to be the GOAT. I told Ed he could not have missed any better than he missed. It was a soft miss off the goal and just perfect to tip it back in.
And the celebration was on.
And just hoping not to get my net broken after the end of the game because everybody just started tugging and grabbing, but those were fun memories.
Cedric Jenkins played in 4 of these games. He says the one-and-done players are going to miss out on really getting to know this rivalry.
I think you get a taste of it, but it's really that second game that it really hits home. You prepare differently. You know exactly what you're going through. So I do think they miss out in many aspects on that.
That's because the fans remember, especially the great plays.
Wow. For years, I thought Felton Spencer tipped that in. By the way, that winning tip was Cedric's only basket of the game. Jenkins now owns and operates a general nutrition center in Hamburg Place. He's also the licensed realtor at that ball game. UK blows a 17-point lead. Kenny Payne, now a UK assistant, hitting some big shots. One of the many, many, many great moments in this rivalry.
Well, that was something that Eddie Sutton always talked about, and he always preached, the tip. Yeah. He would say you can't count on winning it on that shot, but you've got to get in there and you've got to be ready for the tip, and that's where you win it, and it sure won a big game that day.
Well, Cedric listened, I guess.
Now let's hear from a few more media members who will cover today's game and some of their favorite memories of the UK U of L series.
Probably the most memorable, one of the most memorable was the Rex Chapman game when he just went off against Louisville at Freedom Hall. At that time, Louisville, if you remember, Louisville, was coming off a couple of national championships, one in '80, one in '86. It was like they've been to the Final Four several times. I wouldn't say they were the dominant program, but they had certainly risen up to, a high level of success. And the way Rex played with all the hype behind Rex and really came through. I mean, that was when people started calling him the Boy King, the way he played in that game. And you remember Eddie Sutton giving the thumbs up to the fans. That's probably probably the most memorable game.
One of them selfish. It was the December '99 game, and Ralph Hacker called me the morning of the game and had laryngitis, and he said, be ready because I may not be able to go, and as it turned out, he wasn't. So that was the first Kentucky basketball game I ever called. Kentucky won it very decisively, I think about 30, and at that point, you never know if there'd be another, so at least I got to do one.
Pick one. I mean, I thought 2 years ago, when Marcus Cousins' first year, I thought was a great game in Lexington. And then the next year when the Cats went back down to play in Louisville, I thought was a terrific game too. So, I mean, that game it just is a making for instant classics. Last year's game was awfully good. People didn't consider Kentucky having a chance, but they did.
Well, it's not a game I covered. It's the first Kentucky-Louisville game I saw in person. It was in the 1987-88 season. It's the game people remember as the Cedric Jenkins game. It was here in Rupp Arena. A guy in Hardin County gave my brother and I tickets. We were both just over the moon because it was the first UK U of L game we'd ever seen. We sat in the upper arena. Kentucky was the #1 ranked team in the country, dominated the first half, appeared to have the game completely under control. Louisville made this huge comeback. The arena was getting incredibly nervous because Louisville was about to take down the #1 ranked Cats. And then, of course, as everyone will remember, Louisville's up 1, game going down to the final seconds. Kentucky has the ball. Ed Davender misses a jump shot in the corner. Cedric Jenkins just keeps tipping it, and I can still feel just the air come out of the arena as that ball is sitting on the rim. And finally, just before the final buzzer, it goes in. Kentucky wins, Rupp explodes, and that was the first Kentucky-Louisville game I ever saw.
That was an interesting atmosphere the day that Rick came back as the coach of the other team for the first time, and it came in the way that was unexpected. He came in with Tubby, and so all the photographers were focused at the other entrance, and all the fans certainly were too, and all at once everybody kind of realized, oh, he's already in. So that was a little trickery there that was a strategic move, I guess.
When we come back, we'll wrap up this edition of WKYT Game Time.
We will hear more comments from you, the fans, on your favorite UK U of L games of all time. Stay with us.
Welcome back to WKYT Game Time. About 3 hours away, the Cats and the Cards in Rupp.
Now let's head back downtown where all of the action will be later today. Here's Lee K. Howard.
Hey guys, we are here at Wildcat Central, and it really has picked up in the last hour. A lot of people starting to make their way to Rupp Arena, mostly wearing blue. That's good to see. A sea of blue here at Rupp Arena today. Now, this will be a big game, no doubt, for the players, but you could really make an argument that this rivalry is an even bigger game for the fans, those of us who grew up in the state of Kentucky bleeding either blue or, of course, bleeding red, cheering for the Cardinals or the Wildcats. Now, we know Matt Jones has an opinion on this game, and I don't have to tell you what his opinion is, but here's Matt along with Dave Baker in this special edition of the KSR Minute.
Thanks, guys. Here with KSR's Matt Jones, also the cover boy in the Lexington Herald Leader recently.
Yeah.
My question for you, does Julius Randle know how big this game is for you?
For me?
For you. There's nobody this game is bigger for than you.
You know, it's funny. It's interesting. I don't think that the players care nearly as much about the game as the fans. They do care that they're playing a good team. So they don't necessarily care that it's Louisville. I think this team does care about the fact, look, we've played 3 good teams. We've lost all of them.
Right.
We got to beat one of them. So I think they care, but for different reasons.
I think those 3 games, even though they were losses, though, are going to help Kentucky in this situation because I don't think Louisville's played that quality opponent consistently.
I hope so. I mean, with 3 minutes to go in all those games, they had a shot to win. They ended up winning none of them. I think the key thing for them is they've got to find a way to get maybe James Young or Alex Poitras, one of those guys at the 3 spot, give them a chance to succeed. Louisville's got the advantage at the backcourt. Kentucky's got the advantage with the big men. I think it's going to be who plays well at the wing that ends up winning the game.
Great idea for you. Watch the game here on KYT and then join the live blog as well on KSR.
Please do. We need your hits.
Back to you guys.
Hey, thanks. I've seen a lot of people make predictions on this game. Almost no one has made the prediction that it'll be a blowout either direction. Everyone expects a close game. I really think that Louisville's experience really helps out the Cardinals, but ultimately the home court advantage for the Wildcats will win out. And I say Kentucky wins this game 68-61. I don't know, Rob, Brian, if you guys have a prediction for today's game.
All right, Lee K., thank you. I kind of like Kentucky to win it with a home court, but I expect a close game.
Always is. I think we're looking at a 3 to 5 points either way.
As we mentioned earlier, we have been hearing from many of you through our WKYT Facebook page about favorite memories of UK and U of L.
There have been a lot of great games. As you know, Dick Gabriel continues to sift through the responses, and he has a few more to share with us.
I really do, guys. Earlier we talked about that Final Four game in 2012, the return of Rick Pitino to Rupp Arena, and that first regular season game in 1983 when the Cats clobbered the Cards. But a lot of you still count that 1986 game in Freedom Hall when Rex Chapman exploded for 26 points on national TV and the Wildcats romped over the defending national champions 85-51. One of our viewers, Chip Manley, called it a great late Christmas present. Steve Goodrum referred to it on Facebook as the cream game, and he wrote, "I can still hear Kaywood's call of a long 3 by Rex Chapman from way beyond the arc. Yes, that wasn't even a 3. He was so far out. He shot that one from Watterson Expressway." A ton of you loved the comeback win at Louisville in 04. Cats were down 16 at the break, but Patrick Sparks led the comeback, including 3 free throws in the final seconds that sealed the win. Phyllis Vachon liked this one. So did Michael Renfro, who wrote, "I was watching the game at Freedom Hall, 5 rows from the court. Patrick Sparks bringing home the victory." And of course, so many of you went back to the original Dream game where the underdog Wildcats played the Cardinals to a draw after 40 minutes but lost it in overtime down in Knoxville. Doug Deeren wrote that he was a UK Athletics employee who couldn't get tickets, but his little sister was one of just 25 UK students who got him through a lottery, and off they went. Gordon Smith, who used to work for us here, he and his wife Kathy were in the UK pep band, and he said, "My wife spilled a Coke down the CBS floor cameraman's back. For most of his color shots going to commercial break, he would swing and get tight shots of her."
Well, maybe today's game will be one that we talk about for years to come.
Yeah, hopefully it will be. That'll do it for now. There's a lot of basketball programming coming your way here on WKYT.
Coming up next, it is the Men of March series, and the first one will feature Rick Pitino. And then at 1:30, it'll be 30 minutes. The Men of March is none other than John Calipari.
How about that? At 2 p.m., you'll get CBS Sports coverage of what used to be a classic Big East matchup, Villanova and Syracuse, now of the ACC.
And then at 4 o'clock, it'll be the Cats and the Cards, and you will see it right here on WKYT. For Brian Milam, I'm Rob Bromley. Enjoy the game. We'll see you next time on Game Time.
Good night.